think wins in a fight, you or Prime Floyd?
Me?
No questions?
Why would you think that I would say Floyd?
That there's not another guy in the world that can beat you right now. That's Mayweather level. Head to head at their welterweight primes, Bud versus Floyd. I feel like a lot of us might actually be picking Bud right now. But what he achieved, I cannot put him above Mayweather or Pacquiao because he got these opportunities so late.
This is the problem with Bud's career, right? It bloomed kind of late.
Bud's been the baddest man for 12 years, but no one gave him credit because he didn't go tell you he was the baddest man. He didn't market that. He just went out and fought and beat people and knocked people out. So he had to move up and take the bigger.
Terence Crawford fired back at Floyd Mayweather's claim that he could beat him. Speaking with confidence, Crawford declared that even in their primes, he would come out on top. He emphasized that history will remember him as a fighter who never ducked challenges, taking on every opponent who stepped forward. Crawford made it clear, if a fight with Mayweather were ever possible, he wouldn't hesitate.
And he started going like this, and then that's when Floyd started taking over.
What do you want your legacy to be like when your career is all said and done? What do you want people to remember you for?
Oh man, everybody's asking me the question. I always be like, man, it's whatever it's their opinion. Everybody gonna have a different opinion of Terence Crawford, but one thing they can't say is that I ducked anyone. I fought everyone that was available to fight.
Boxing insider Dan Raphael believes Terence Crawford has already reached a rare point in his career where fighting again is no longer required to cement his legacy. Raphael points out that Crawford has cleaned out divisions, unified titles, and dominated elite opponents without ever showing weakness. At this stage, it's less about proving himself and more about protecting his legacy while enjoying the recognition he has earned. In Raphael's view, Crawford's resume has already exceeded expectations, and chasing unnecessary fights would add little to his historical standing. His recent dominance alone is enough to secure his place among boxing's all-time greats.
What does a Terence Crawford do now? Like, what's the next thing that he does? Because you look around and go, is the only way that he really gets that, maybe that ultimate chance if he goes up again? And do you say, what do you do?
I don't quite. Yeah, I mean, he was asked those questions at the press conference. He made two things clear. One, he's not going back to 154, and I say that because some people suggested about possibly pursuing a fight with Ennis, who has his debut in the weight class coming up.
Yeah,
that's probably unlikely. He's not going to go back down in weight. And I mean, no disrespect to Ennis, but Ennis is a guy that's known within the diehards of boxing. He's not in any way known beyond the boundaries of the hardcore boxing fan. So yeah. I don't know if that makes sense for a lot of different reasons for him. Not to say I wouldn't, as a boxing fan, enjoy watching the fight. So, yeah. But I don't think he's going back to 154. He was asked about like a Benavides at 175, and he acknowledged like that guy's really big. I mean, that's maybe a bridge too far. He already went up to two weight classes to fight Canelo at 68. So it feels to me like he can either stay at 168 and defend this championship and look to the same types of names that were being thrown around as the types of guys that would have been in the mix for Canelo had he won the fight. And, he's going to have mandatories. Obviously, that's the first thing they'll have to look at. I mean, I don't know if he's not going to necessarily keep the belts if he's forced into a mandatory. He doesn't need the belts at this point, but there might be something appealing to him. For example, and Billy had a great fight on the undercard, although he's been ordered to fight a rematch in that fight. Mm-hmm. That was, like fight of the year against Lester Martinez, candidate for fight of the year.
The emphatic way Terence Crawford dismantled Canelo Alvarez has sparked heated debate across the boxing world. Fans and analysts were quick to compare his performance to Floyd Mayweather's own victory over Canelo. But while Mayweather's triumph came against a younger, less experienced version of the Mexican star, Crawford's dominance came against a fully seasoned, battle-tested Canelo. This contrast has led some to question whether Crawford's win should be considered greater. However, analyst Luke Thomas urges caution with that conclusion. He points out that Floyd established himself as a superstar much earlier in his career, taking on elite names at a young age, while Crawford's rise to prominence was delayed by lack of promotion and recognition. As a result, Crawford's defining moments have arrived later in his career. Thomas argues that while Crawford's win over Canelo may have been more impressive in execution, it doesn't automatically place him above Floyd historically. Timing and career trajectory, he insists, are just as important as the victories themselves when making these comparisons.
This was a masterclass. One guy with outrageous skill offensively and defensively, simply making another very good fighter look lesser than. This was the other part. The people who watch MMA and then try to watch boxing through an MMA lens, I don't know what to tell you. You're actually missing the point. The kind of specific details and the depth of the technical ability far surpasses even what you can get at the highest level of MMA because they don't have that level of skill. There is no equivalent in MMA to Bud Crawford because there cannot be. Bud is the most talented boxer I've seen since Mayweather.
I think Crawford is way better than Floyd Mayweather.
To be fair to Floyd, he obviously had hand problems in his whole welterweight run, and it's why he took that long stretch off in 2007, 2008, 2009 area, and Floyd's brilliance to be able to be just as great in some ways at that age. We're not here trying to dunk on Floyd. When you get a victory like this, right now, straight up, Luke, you could say that there's not a welterweight, junior middleweight, or maybe even super middleweight. When you could say over like a 4-division stretch, Bud, cut down to any of these weights, that there's not another guy in the world that can beat you right now, that's Mayweather level. Head to head at their welterweight primes, Bud versus Floyd, I feel like a lot of us might actually be picking Bud right now. But what he achieved, I cannot put him above Mayweather or Pacquiao because he got these opportunities so late.
This is the problem with Bud's career, right? It bloomed kind of late. I find Bud to be as defensively sound as I've ever seen a fighter. He can find you. There's nowhere to hide with him.
Like Floyd, he has such control over the terms in there. It's just insane.
Buddy McGirt was one of the most vocal supporters of Terence Crawford after the Canelo fight, describing the performance as nothing short of complete domination. McGirt explained that from the opening bell, Crawford controlled every aspect of the bout, never once allowing Canelo to dictate the pace or enforce his trademark pressure. He emphasized that Crawford's victory was so decisive that a rematch would serve no purpose. The gap in skill, strategy, and execution was simply too wide and too clear for the world to see. For McGirt, this fight gave Crawford exactly what he had been chasing his entire career, a defining, career-cementing win over one of boxing's biggest superstars. By dismantling a fighter of Canelo's stature, Crawford's greatness has now been validated not only in the eyes of fans, but also in the pages of boxing history. As McGirt put it, there's nothing left to prove. Crawford has written his chapter, and his dominance over Canelo will forever stand as a testament to his place among the legends of the sport.
Yes.
Like, what fight were they watching?
Right.
I mean, it's. I don't know, man. I don't know what some of these guys be doing in this game, man. Some people, in situations like that, they should ask them, listen, just turn in your license, bro. Because there's no way in hell the fight was that close.
Right.
I mean, come on, man. It's just, it's not fair. It's not fair. You get a guy like Terence got here and dominate from beginning to end, and then you find out he needed the last 2 rounds to win. That's scary, man.
It is. And you see how you just mentioned scary. Now, a lot of people are saying, buddy, that type of beating, nah, he's not going to want a rematch. But looking at those gold cards and knowing that, hey, you wasn't too far behind, even though, he did mention that, he's better than Mayweather. But I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you feel like that was such a beating that Canelo wouldn't want a rematch?
No, I think that, in all honesty, personally, I think that Canelo's at that stage in his career right now, that it's a rematch he don't need. He don't need it. You know what I mean? What we saw that night, that's the stage Canelo's at right now. He's fought everybody, he's did everything, but he passed the torch to the right guy. He passed the torch to the right guy. He lost it to Terence fair and square, and he passed the torch. So if you're gonna have another fight, cool, but you don't need to. You have nothing. He has nothing to prove. He fought Terence and nobody else would.
When comparing Terence Crawford to Floyd Mayweather, analysts often point to the mental side of Floyd's game as the defining factor that kept him a step ahead. Crawford is recognized as technically brilliant, able to switch stances seamlessly, adapt mid-fight, and dismantle opponents with surgical precision. Yet, what separated Mayweather was an additional layer of psychological mastery. Floyd didn't just fight inside the ring. he controlled the space outside of it as well. He manipulated the minds of his opponents, forcing them to doubt themselves, abandon their strategies, and play directly into his hands. This ability to dominate both physically and mentally created an aura of inevitability around him. For many boxing historians, this psychological warfare is what elevates Mayweather above even the most gifted technicians. Crawford's skill set is undeniable, but the unique mental control Floyd carried into every fight remains unmatched. The comparison shows just how close Crawford is to Floyd's level, while also highlighting the one dimension that still sets Floyd apart.
Hagler, Hearns. I've seen Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler. Like I've seen all of those things, and those fights were wars. Floyd Mayweather is the best boxer I've ever seen. He's the most skilled boxer I've ever seen. Bud, and this is just my opinion, is the baddest man I've seen wear boxing gloves. And here's why I say that.
RC.
Here's why I say that. Bud is extremely skilled, right? Yet not as skilled as Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather made people look foolish, right? And so if I had to say who's the greatest I've seen, and Bud said it right, the best of an era and the best of an era, it's Floyd. But when I watched Bud against Canelo, there was this extreme skill on display, and there was a level of crazy that's different. There was a level of, and Floyd's extremely tough. Go back to Shane Mosley and the 2 punches he landed early in the fight and the way that he embarrassed him. I'm not saying that Floyd's not tough, Floyd's not a bad man, but there was domination inside that ring we saw this weekend. Yeah. And there's no fear in him in the way that he's attacked gaining notoriety. Bud's been the baddest man for 12 years, but no one gave him credit because he didn't go tell you he was the baddest man. He didn't market that. He just went out and fought and beat people and knocked people out. So he had to move up and take the bigger fights and the better fights, and he was arrow spin.
For over a decade, Terence Crawford has been displaying world-class skills, yet his understated personality and refusal to embrace theatrics kept him under the radar. Unlike fighters who thrive on brash self-promotion and controversy, Crawford chose to let his fists do the talking. This earned him deep respect among boxing purists, but it came at the cost of mainstream recognition. Only in recent years, with monumental victories over Errol Spence Jr. and Canelo Alvarez, has the wider sporting public begun to fully recognize his greatness. Still, critics argue this acknowledgement may have come too late. At this stage of his career, Crawford is closer to the finish line than the beginning. While he can certainly add to his legacy, the window for building lasting mainstream superstardom is narrowing. The question remains, how different would history view Terence Crawford if he had been given the spotlight much earlier?
Just how great he was. Canelo cemented him on what is the two-headed monster that marks the greatest of the 2000s. Floyd Mayweather is on that, and Bud Crawford is right next to him. I don't think we have to pick on who's better. I think they both dominated their eras equally.
Floyd Mayweather has often faced criticism for refusing to acknowledge the greatness of others, famously declining to admit that Muhammad Ali, hailed by many as the greatest of all time, should be ranked above him. Now, with Terence Crawford achieving historic feats that put him in similar conversations, questions about Floyd's ego have resurfaced. Crawford's decisive victory over Canelo Alvarez has pushed his name into the same historical discussions that Mayweather has long occupied, for a fighter as protective of his legacy as Floyd. Such comparisons are not easy to accept. Critics argue that Mayweather thrives on being the singular benchmark of boxing excellence, the standard against which all others are measured. When another fighter begins to share that space, it threatens his pride. This perception of jealousy has fueled debate over Floyd's public responses to Crawford's rise, with many believing he struggles to accept anyone being celebrated at his level.
Puts him on par with Floyd Mayweather Jr.
And you know Floyd Mayweather Jr. doesn't like that. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is one of the biggest egos in the sport, so much so that he could not find a way to give Muhammad Ali credit as being a top 5 fighter and claimed that Roberto Duran sits above Muhammad Ali, right? Why? Because Floyd wants to be better than Muhammad Ali. He completely redid his image when he became Money Mayweather to pretty much copy from calling himself the GOAT, calling himself TBE, right? Whole thing. Very disrespectful of Muhammad Ali when he was coming up, when after Floyd Mayweather Jr. wound up being at the top of the sport. So now that Terence Crawford has firmly placed himself at the top of boxing, and not just as the pound for pound fighter right now, many people are saying, hey, shouldn't he be considered one of the greatest fighters of all time? Isn't this a realistic conversation we can have? So what does that do? That butts Terence Crawford right up against Floyd Mayweather. So when Floyd was asked a series of questions, right, because Floyd is now has a fight coming up. I do believe it maybe in January. I think it may be in January or early 2026, I believe is the time frame, where Floyd Mayweather Jr. is going to be fighting Mike Tyson I believe this is going to be an exhibition.
Shawn Porter spoke directly with Terence Crawford about the motivations that fueled his rise to greatness. Crawford revealed that for years, critics dismissed him, claiming he wasn't capable of competing at the sport's highest level. Instead of shying away from the pressure, he embraced it, seeking out the very challenges people believed he couldn't overcome. For Crawford, victories over Errol Spence Jr. and Canelo Alvarez weren't just career milestones. They were deeply personal vindications. Each win silenced years of doubt, turning skepticism into respect and cementing his place among boxing's elite.
Get close to him when you want to, not when he wants you to. And you know what I mean? That's how it was.
I know, I'm sorry. I know this is bad production, but we don't need you to turn that phone to the side. I know I'm thinking about Happy right now. I'm like, he know better. That's better. That's better. Go ahead, Ant. Go ahead.
Hey, but you know how, man, me and Sean, we know you personally. I had people telling me, nah, man, this is just a money grab. He just went up there for the money. I said, man, if you know this dude, but you mentally, bro, I put you in the same category as Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. I'm like, he wants to be great. Y'all want the money, but I want to be great. Where that come from, man?
It's just me, you know what I mean? Like, I think all the greats is just born with that competitiveness, you know? And like I said, you know, a lot of people, they didn't want me to accomplish the feat over Canelo. It wasn't that it wasn't possible. They didn't want me to be the one to do it because I was the one that they was blackballing for years. I was the one that they said, you know, wasn't gonna make it to this table. I was the one that they said couldn't sell. I was the one that they said, you know, made bad business decisions. So of course they don't want me to be the one to make it to the top and then conquer.
Porter highlighted how Crawford's willingness to confront adversity head-on reflects a rare mentality in the sport. While many fighters choose safer routes, Crawford deliberately chased the toughest opponents, determined to prove he belonged among the very best. That mindset, Porter explained, is what has elevated Crawford into the conversation of all-time greats. His legacy will not only be measured by his extraordinary talent, but also by the resilience and determination that defined his journey.
All odds, because now it's a slap in the face to every person that ever wrote a bad article about me, about anything.
Probably the best fit of all.
And a lot of people get mad at me because I said, when it comes from pound for pound that I ever seen it in my lifetime, ever, I got Floyd, then I got you. They're like, well, what about blah, blah, blah? I said, this is who I seen. I seen Bud. I seen Floyd. I can't talk about what happened in the 20s and the 40s. I can talk about what I seen now. Do you feel like, Bud, you stamped your legacy and we're going to forever say, well, you could have beat this person, you could beat that person? You feel like you did it?
Of course, it's definitely gonna be. It's already written in the history books.
Yeah.
Like before, everybody was already comparing me and saying things like that. But hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. But now, you know, what I mean, it's like, okay, so now he proving himself with a bigger, stronger guy in his weight division that he was undefeated in, that he was undisputed in, you know. So those things like that, you know, you can't ignore.
Hey man, how do you allow people not to put their limitations on you? Because when I gave motivation last week, I told them about like how you motivated me to start my own company. And come out, I remember you been in my living in my kitchen, motivated me to start my own company. How do you allow no one else to put their limitations on Terrence Bud Crawford?
Easy.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned for more updates, breakdowns, and big boxing stories. Until next time, thanks for watching.